Everyone knows that AI visibility matters, but so many teams still have no idea how to measure it. And right now, that gap is costing brands real opportunities, because if you can't track it, you can't improve it. I'm Chris, and in this video, I'm going to give you 3 simple ways to get a handle on where you actually stand in AI-generated answers so that you can start improving your brand visibility today. Let's start. The first method is the manual one. This requires no tools if you just want to use Google, and you could even do it all for free if you wanted, using different AI tools and whatever limited free usage that they offer. You simply would go to the various LLMs, enter various prompts related to your brand, and then track your visibility for them over time. So if you were in the coffee space, for example, and you were looking to understand your brand visibility for key prompts related to what you offer, you might type in something like best organic coffee subscription under $25 into something like Google AI mode, like I've done here, and you'd want to check if your brand is mentioned and or cited, and then you would do the same thing in ChatGPT and Claude and so on. But it's easy for this to get out of hand because you have to track it all manually, and you want to make sure you're tracking prompts that actually matter to your brand, and keeping track of all of that can get a little bit tricky, especially if you're running 10 or more prompts. Lucky for you, I've put together this tracker spreadsheet that you can see on screen right now, and you can download that in the description of this video, and I'll show you how to use it to track your own brand's visibility. So first of all, you'll see the date column here. You could adjust this depending on how often you want to track things. This is currently set up as weekly tracking. Then we have prompts going along the top. I've added some example prompts in as a comment in each of the columns. This is just to give you a rough idea of the kinds of things you might want to search for in various tools, and obviously you would just sub things out for your brand and the kind of solutions that your brand offers. I recommend tracking these prompts for a couple of different platforms. So for example, here I have ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google AI mode. The idea is that you track your visibility for these prompts over time, and then you monitor that visibility with ease using this graph on the right-hand side. It will populate automatically as you fill out the tracker. The scoring is fairly simple. It is 1 point for a mention, 1 for a citation, and if you have both, then you get 2 points. It's very rudimentary, I do appreciate that, but it's useful for gauging rough visibility over time, and you can map that to changes you made in your content, for example, or maybe you launched a new product. I recommend sticking with prompts that are related to what you offer rather than straight up branded prompts, since if you ask something like, is X brand worth it, you're obviously going to be mentioned in the AI response because the tool needs to mention the brand to answer the question clearly. And it's likely going to pull from your website as well. So you're probably going to get the citation and the mention if you ask directly. So for those prompts, what matters more than mentions and citations is really sentiment. So more what the tool is saying about your brand and how you're being described. I'll come back to that in the third method because it is very important to measure brand sentiment, but it's hard to do manually at scale. So the kind of prompts that work best for this manual solution tend to be prompts like best X tool for Y use case, that kind of thing. They're going to be way more valuable to track when all you are tracking is whether you're mentioned and whether you're cited. So here's what the visibility chart might look like after you've been tracking prompts for, say, 3 months. So you can see here the different performance trends on the different platforms. So it's a useful visualization. It's obviously very rudimentary, but it does the job for teams that just want to get a gauge on their overall visibility for a couple of prompts, or you want to compare your visibility across a few different AI platforms. So this is helpful for directional insights, but there are a few important notes. So first, these results are only from a tiny sample size of 1, i.e. you manually entering the prompts, and that sample size is also going to be potentially influenced by personalization factors. So what these platforms already know about you, you can mitigate some of that by using temporary chats. You're also choosing which prompts to track, which isn't necessarily giving you a full unbiased view of your brand's visibility, because you are choosing to track specific prompts that people may or may not be searching in these tools. Now, Step 2 will have a quick remedy for that, but it's still going to remain a bit of a problem given that you are the one cherry picking the prompts to track. And finally, it's a reasonable amount of work for essentially directional output. There are limited insights you can gain from something like this. And so this will work for a first try at measuring your AI visibility, and it's best for understanding broad trends. But to learn which queries are actually driving that AI visibility, we can turn to some free tools that you're probably already using. There are two free tools that can give you some real data on your AI visibility straight from the source. So the first of these is Google Search Console, and this can give you a good indication of the kinds of queries that your audience is typing into Google. Now, this method isn't perfect, and it's not strictly speaking just going to show AI prompts, and a lot of these may not return AI overviews, and they're not necessarily typed into AI mode. But again, it is a useful directional tool, and this is actually going to give you real data, again, straight from the source, straight from Google, of queries that real users are typing in. So it involves going into Google's Search Console's Search Performance Report and adding a filter. So up the top here, just click Add Filter and you're going to click on Query. You're going to change this to Custom Regex. You're going to enter this slightly intimidating looking string of symbols. You don't really need to fully understand it to get use out of it, but the quick explanation that is that it's going to filter for queries that are 8 words or longer, and you can change the number here to adjust this up or down, but I find about 8 is a good starting point. So these are queries that are more than likely actually prompts that people are typing into Google Search and Google AI mode, although they can, as I mentioned, just be regular searches that just happen to be a bit longer. So click Apply and this will load in, and you'll see here all of the queries down here are at least 8 words or longer. So you can do a couple of things with this data. First, you can just get an understanding of the kinds of queries that users are typing in to find your brand and your content. Now, this can help you optimize your existing content and get new content ideas if you find you're appearing for prompts but not yet targeting them specifically. Good candidates for this are any prompts that you get a lot of impressions for, but not many clicks. So you can sort by impressions here, and you can see we get a lot of impressions for queries like how to find low competition keywords with high traffic, but we currently don't get any clicks. So this is a query that Google thinks that we are relevant to, but not quite getting the visibility and clicks that we could get if we were further optimized for this query, if it happened to be a query that was relevant. Not all of these are going to be super relevant for your brand, so you're just going to have to go through it and decide which ones are and which ones you can ignore. It's also important to note that some of these, like this one, what are the best practices for internal linking with long tail keywords in mind, are likely seeing few clicks because they have highly informational intent, and the AI overview that may be appearing on the SERP for that term is fully answering the query for the user. Now, you can see that here in this example. This is a fairly in-depth AI overview that is probably answering the full query in about as much detail as a lot of users would need for such a specific query like this. And so not all of these terms are going to be either worth optimizing for or at least not worth creating a new piece of content on. But the second way that you can make use of this data is that you can feed any priority prompts here into the first method with the tracker sheet. So remember how I said that one of the problems with the manual method is that you're essentially guessing what your target audience is asking? Well, this can help you evolve that tracker sheet to be at least based partly on prompts that you know your audience is actually searching, rather than just choosing what you think people are typing in. So the other free tool that lets you do something similar is Bing Webmaster Tools. Now, I know a lot of people write off Bing as a search engine and think Google is the only one that matters, but Microsoft's Copilot is used every day by millions of people, and per the company's most recent earnings report, the Bing search engine itself sees 1 billion users every month. So don't ignore Bing for search and AI visibility, particularly because Bing Webmaster Tools now gives you built-in AI visibility tracking. Okay, it's not quite as powerful as the third method that I'll show you in a moment, but it does give you a handy overview of your site's overall AI visibility and Copilot-enabled tools specifically. So you can find it in the AI Performance tab within Bing Webmaster Tools, and you will first see a chart of the total number of times that your site has been cited in AI-generated answers over time. It'll also show you the queries that users are actually typing into Copilot-enabled tools, including Bing, to find your brand and your content. It calls these queries grounding queries, and you can see how many citations your site has for each query. Like we did with Google Search Console's impressions column, you can sort by citations from lowest to highest to see the terms that Copilot is showing you for, but you're not appearing all that often, and therefore you could be better optimized for. Again, not all of these will be relevant to your brand, but you can still find some optimization opportunities here. And again, you can update the manual method with the spreadsheet to track some of these prompts more specifically. Okay, what if you wanted an all-in-one comprehensive AI visibility dashboard that shows you what prompts you appear for, on which platforms, and what those platforms are saying about your brand? That's where the third method comes in. Semrush's AI Visibility Toolkit gives you plenty of tools to understand your brand's visibility, and I will cover 3 of my favorite reports here, and starting with the Visibility Overview tab. So in this tab, you can see your brand's overall visibility, along with how many mentions, citations, and cited pages you have over time. And you can choose to see this on specific platforms too, so you can look at all platforms or ChatGPT, AI Overview, AI Mode, and Gemini currently. If you scroll down, you will see the topics and individual prompts that your brand appears for. So I'm currently looking at the Visibility Overview for King Arthur Baking. Now, they are an excellent case study in various aspects of marketing. Keep an eye out for a video that Amanda's going to record soon of their Reddit strategy and how they are absolutely killing it over there. But in terms of AI visibility, you can see they are appearing in lots of different topics, lots of different prompts. And if you look at the specific prompts here, lots of branded ones. And if we click into each topic, you can see more specific prompts, and then you can see the full response from the AI tool for that. If you go through this for your own brand and you find specific prompts that you want to monitor over time, just click the monitor button on the right hand side, or monitor all prompts to monitor all the prompts in a given topic. Next, I want to show you the brand performance tab. This is where you can see competitive AI visibility data like your share of voice versus your rivals, and even how your brand sentiment in AI tools compares to them. So I'm looking at Hostinger right now and seeing how it compares to its rivals in this handy chart. And you can also see overall favorable versus general sentiment and share of voice in this chart here. Basically, you can see an at-a-glance view of not just how often and how high up you're appearing in AI answers, but also how positively these tools are talking about your brand when you do show up. So further down the page, you'll see this key business drivers section. Now, these are essentially things that are important to your target audience, like value-oriented pricing and renewals. For hosting, that's clearly an important aspect because you're renewing every year. So you'll see these business drivers down the left-hand side, and you'll also see how often your brand is mentioned in the context of those key business drivers compared to your rivals. So for example, Hostinger is mentioned a lot in the context of value-oriented pricing and renewals, and compared to the likes of Vercel or Render, not mentioned very often in this context. But Vercel is mentioned a lot more than Hostinger in the context of global CDN and edge delivery. If that's something that's important to you as a user and you are asking these AI tools about which hosting provider to go for, you might not see Hostinger mentioned currently in the context of built-in CDNs and edge caching as much as you might see something like Vercel. So you might be more likely to choose Vercel. Now, if I was Hostinger and that is important to me, then this is something that I would want to improve my content and messaging for to ensure that we are more likely to be mentioned in the context of this specific key business driver. If it's not important to my brand, then I'm not going to be too fussed if my rivals are appearing more often for it, as long as I am appearing in the context of the business drivers that are important to my brand. So this is essentially very helpful for understanding whether your brand is being talked about in the context of the features and services that actually matter most to your audience, and the relevant services and features that you actually offer as a brand, or that you could offer in future. Finally, I want to show you the perception tab. So when you first land on this tab, you will see some sentiment metrics, and you can see this by platform and again against your competitors. This time I'm going to look at Patagonia. And a little bit further down, you'll see key sentiment drivers, and these consist of your brand strength factors. So effectively things that your brand is already doing well, or current areas that you're currently strong, and then you have areas that you could improve. But further down, this is where you can start to see topic specific information about how you actually show up. So for example, you will see your brand sentiment and mention frequency for specific feature categories. This tells you how and how often your brand is showing up for things like product selection focused queries. So for Patagonia, that's going to be feature categories like sustainable materials and social impact, climate, environment, and activism, these kinds of categories. But if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see how your brand is actually being described in these tools, in these contexts. So for example, you can click into a broad description and then select your brand. So industry leader in corporate activism. If I click into that and then select Patagonia, you're probably not going to be surprised to see that Patagonia is often mentioned in this kind of context, but you'll actually be able to see the actual phrases that AI tools are using to describe your brand for queries related to whatever topic you've clicked into. So for Patagonia, they are being described as a global leader in environmental activism, an industry leader, direct activist support, industry leader, very positive sentiment around the topic of activism. If you click this number here in the answers column, you'll be able to see this language in action. So which companies are leaders in recycled materials for outdoor apparel. You can see Patagonia here, widely considered the industry leader. Very positive sentiment and mentioned first. That's great. If you perform this analysis for your own brand and you're seeing inaccurate or outdated descriptions, then you can then understand exactly where you need to get to work to improve your content, your product descriptions, and your overall messaging to change that. To try all of these tools that I've gone through here for yourself, you can sign up for a Semrush 1 free trial via the link in the description below. So you now have 3 methods for tracking AI visibility. You have 1 manual, 1 tool assisted, and 1 comprehensive all-in-one solution. But honestly, the best approach right now is probably a combination of all 3. This way you get the first party data combined with manual tracking and the enhanced competitive data from Semrush. I recommend starting with a combination of the manual tracking and monitoring via Google Search Console and Bing, because this will give you a good starting point for getting some directional insights. Then, when you're ready to start tracking more comprehensively, you can use Semrush's AI Visibility Toolkit, again, link in the description below. For more videos on all things AI search, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're uploading new content every week to help you grow your own brand's online presence. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.